It's a great celebration of the incredible talent that we have here on stage, surrounding us, our chorus right in front of us. So that is an amazing place to be, where half of our school is performing for the other half of our school. The other aspect of why this is a really special moment is really about connection. And it's really not about any one of us, but about us collectively. Because, ladies and gentlemen, all across America, our country, in schools, in every state, elementary schools, middle schools, and high schools, a similar assembly is happening because we're all Americans. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a part of learning about your country and is a really big part of being an American citizen. In our 8th grade classes, we work with you on civics. We teach you about the Bill of Rights. You know that the freedom of assembly, the freedom of speech, the freedom of religion, the freedom to grow up and figure out who you are, the freedom to get an education does not exist the way we enjoy it everywhere in the world. There are places in the world where kids can't get clean drinking water. There are places in the world where, because of your gender, you're not allowed an education. It's difficult for us. It's difficult for us to put ourselves, and I'm speaking for myself more so than anything else, to put myself in a situation where to deeply appreciate not being allowed an education because of my gender, or not being allowed to figure out who I am throughout the course of my life because of who I look or where I was born, or what my parents did. All of that is a result of people that fought and died and worked really, really hard to provide us with the freedoms that we enjoy. This ceremony marks that. This ceremony connects us to the brave men and women who created this country and maintain this country, but it also connects us to every other school in this nation. There's a strong, strong connection with this assembly and with becoming really active and engaged citizens. So thank you to our performers. We have a very special guest speaker today, who Mr. Powers will be introducing right now, and Mr. Powers will be serving, Mr. Powers and Mr. Silitano organize this event every year, and want to extend my gratitude to them as well as to everybody who makes this event possible. Mr. Powers.
Thank you, Mr. Foley. I want to welcome everybody to the 2023 Gibbons Middle School Memorial Day Assembly. What Mr. Foley said, I couldn't have said it any better. In fact, many of the themes that he talked about are themes that you're going to be hearing today. So I'm just going to go ahead and give it the best we got. Today's assembly has multiple purposes. Our Memorial Day Assembly is first and foremost a respectful recognition of Americans who have fought for our country and for the freedoms that we enjoy every day. It also gives us a chance to see all of our musical groups perform so that we can enjoy the high quality of their performance. And it also signifies that another year is almost over. I say almost over because it's not quite there, but along with that feeling comes all the mixed feelings that come with the summer that's almost here. Today's assembly will feature a variety of selections from our musical groups and student speakers from each of our teams, who will read a variety of pieces reflecting some of the meanings of Memorial Day. First up, please welcome the Gibbons Middle School Orchestra under the direction of Ms. Chartier, who will be performing our national anthem, the Star Spangled Banner. The Star Spangled Banner will be introduced by Disha Kumar. Disha.
Star Spangled Banner were written by Francis Scott Key while he watched the British bomb Fort McHenry during the War of 1812. As he observed the bombardment and noticed that the American flag still flew over the fort, he was inspired to write the lines, "Oh say can you see by the dawn's early light." During the War of 1812, as during other conflicts in our nation's history, American citizens have stepped up and sacrificed their lives to protect our rights that we have today. This is the essence of Memorial Day. At this time, please stand for our national anthem.
Thank you, Ms. Charrier, and our very fine orchestra. Every day, we begin school by reciting our Pledge of Allegiance. The Pledge of Allegiance is not given to a particular leader or in any way seeks to diminish or hide the mistakes of our past. Rather, the pledge is a promise by all of us to work towards the principles that are the foundation of our very country, such as liberty and justice for all. Here to explain the origin and meaning of the Pledge of Allegiance is Spencer Garrison of the Maroon team.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. Those words have been recited every day at this school for the past year, and have been recited as such ever since 1891. The Pledge of Allegiance was written originally by a man named Francis Bellamy, who later submitted the short speech to a magazine very close to Westboro, the Boston Youth Companion magazine. The pledge was included and also printed on hundreds of thousands of leaflets sent to schools over all 50 states. It was on October 12th of that very same year, 1891, that 12 million school children rose to their feet for the first time, looked at a newly installed American flag, and for the first time recited the Pledge of Allegiance, marking the start of the tradition that we uphold today. Except, not quite. The pledge has a storied history and has been changed and edited numerous times since its conception. The first change coming in the 1920s, when it was realized that the language of the Pledge of Allegiance was too ambiguous. And so the First Amendment was made, the inclusion of the words, "I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America." The second and most controversial change to the speech was the inclusion of the line, "Under God," by President Dwight D. Eisenhower in order to bolster the American people against communism, believing that faith in God would override faith in communist ideology. The Pledge of Allegiance is an ultimate symbol of patriotism, created by a simple American man, but adopted by the entirety of the nation in every school. By reciting the pledge each morning, we show respect to our country and memoriam to those who came before us, every day when we stand indivisible with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Spencer. Please stand while Mrs. Stewart leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Gibbons Middle School Band will now play Spirit of America, directed by Mr. Doyle. Here to introduce the piece is Ava Jacobs. Ava.
On Monday, there will be parades all around the country in celebration of Memorial Day. It's hard to imagine a parade without a marching band. Marching bands originally began as military units that were formed to help move troops from one place to another and to provide spirited music to inspire the soldiers. These days, marching bands are part of the school band experience for students all over the world. Our Gibbons Middle School Band students will take part in the parade here in Westboro to help our community mark this solemn occasion. Our selection, Spirit of America, is a patriotic piece for marching bands that feature two well-known melodies, America the Beautiful and the Battle Hymn of the Republic.
One, two, ready, and...
Thank you, Mr. Doyle, and our band. The tradition of Memorial Day has been around for quite some time. Here to tell us about its history and meaning is Brian Levine of the Purple Team.
Less than 3 weeks after the Confederate States submitted to Union forces at the end of the Civil War, the first Memorial Day ceremony took place. In fact, it was originally called Decoration Day and was first observed after the Civil War in remembrance of the Union and Confederate soldiers who died in the Civil War. Over 1,000 Union soldiers entered a mass grave at an abandoned prisoner camp on May 1st, 1865, and gave each of the numerous Union soldiers there a proper burial along with flowers, greetings, and music.
In addition to marking the unofficial start of summer, Memorial Day is a day of remembrance and celebration for American warriors who have sacrificed their lives while defending our nation. At 3 o'clock local time, there is a moment of silence across the nation, and until 12, the American flag is flown at half-staff as an act of respect. Despite not being declared a federal holiday until 1971, Memorial Day has been celebrated for over 150 years as a holiday where people decorate the graves of fallen soldiers with flowers, flags, and medallions. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Because Memorial Day has been around for quite some time now, it has been interpreted in many different ways. And many ways that people have interpreted have been expressed in a series of stories and poems. Here to read one such poem called Memorial Day by Michelle Kahn is Valentina Carvalho of the Blue Team.
As we stand here looking at the flags upon these graves, know these flags represent a few of the true American brave. They fought for their country as people have through all of time, except that these soldiers lying here fought for your country and mine. As we are all gathered here to pay them our respect, let's pass this word to others. It's what they would expect. I'm sure that they would do it if it were me or you, to show we did not die in vain before the red, white, and blue. Let's pass on to our children and to those who never knew what these soldiers died for. It's the least we can do. Let's not forget their families, great pain they had to bear, losing a son or daughter, father or mother. They need to know we still care. No matter which war was fought on the day that they died, I stand here looking at these flags filled with American pride. So as a bugler plays out taps with its sweet and eerie sound, pray for these soldiers lying here in this sacred hallowed ground. Take home with you a sense of pride. You are here Memorial Day, celebrating the way Americans should on the solemnest of days.
Thank you, Valentina. At the core of Memorial Day is the appreciation and remembrance of American soldiers who have made the ultimate sacrifice for our country. The Gibbons Middle School Chamber Ensemble, led by Mr. Stolitano, will now perform American Soldier. American Soldier will be introduced by Cam Glennon, Georgia Fleming, and Kanak Agarwal. Sorry.
American Soldier is a song co-written, recorded, and released in November 2003 by American country music artist Toby Keith. It became #1 hit in the US Billboard Hot Country Songs chart, keeping the top spot for 4 weeks.
Keith said the song was written for all the times I get to meet the troops on my USO tours. This is my support for the American men and women fighting. American soldier is about a soldier who is headed off to war and found from the first person. Willing to take a stand and do what he feels is right, he is prepared to die. Because freedom don't come free. Ray Waddle of Billboard magazine reviewed the song favorably, saying that he makes his politics readily apparent on this gentle, powerful song.
Everything to everyone.
Fuller for that performance of American Soldier. How appropriate then that we now go from a performance of American Soldier to hearing from a real American soldier. We are very fortunate this year to add to our normal program a speaking performance of soldier Anthony Pittman. During his career service of over 20 years, Command Sergeant Major Anthony Pittman took part in the Iraq invasion of 2004 and spent 5 deployments in the countries of Iraq, Afghanistan, and the Philippines. His training included the Airborne School, Survival, Evasion, Resistance, Escape, or SERE, and anti-terrorist training. Among his decorations, Command Sergeant Major Pittman has been awarded the Legion of Merit, 2 Bronze Stars, and the Defense Meritorious Medal. Please welcome to our school Command Sergeant Major Pittman, retired.
First off, I want to say thank you, Mr. Powers. I really appreciate the invitation. Memorial Day is a very special day for me and most soldiers. I also want to thank everybody else that's here, a part of the assembly that we have today. And just you guys being here is an honor to everybody that wears the uniform. So from the bottom of my heart, I thank all of you. So I want to start out by talking a little bit about public service. Public service to me is the foundation of our democracy. Without people stepping up and moving into positions of authority within our towns, cities, states, and federal government, we would fall apart, and I've seen that across the globe. Some examples of public service that stand out to me are the police force, the fire department. I've already talked a little bit about the town leadership, city, state, federal government, the school systems, teachers, administrators, and of course, military personnel. As a soldier, it's instilled in us very early in our career that we face a very dangerous job. There's a high likelihood of serious injury, including death. It's not easy to accept those things, but we come to accept them through our training and through events like this. I'm going to describe a couple of things like this assembly that really touched me and got me through some pretty dark times in my life and especially in my career. As a soldier, it was instilled in us that we're going to face dangerous tasks every day. On my first deployment to Afghanistan, I had to sit through what we call ramp-side ceremonies. That's when an American soldier or one of the coalition soldiers was killed in action. They bring the soldier to the airfield in Kandahar. That's the south portion of Afghanistan where I was. And we would do a ceremony, a quick memorial ceremony to memorialize the person that died, say our goodbyes, and move on with our mission. During that ceremony, it was a guy I had lunch with the day prior, and we were working on a couple of programs to start some schools for females that didn't have access to school. While the ceremony was going on, I couldn't hold back the tears. My face was just flooded with emotion, and it was a very difficult time. But as I stood there, I remembered something from a few years prior. I was in a parade in Fayetteville, North Carolina, a Memorial Day parade, very similar to what you guys will see on Monday. At the end of the parade, we get to this cul-de-sac, and we're finishing up, breaking out of the formation, and moving past, just getting ready to go about our day. And this little kid, 5, 6 years old, whatever he was, came up to me with a small flag, handed it to me, and said, "Thank you for your service." I appreciated that at the time. It didn't mean a ton, but it was a moment, and it was special. As I was standing there, ramp side, just bawling my eyes out, trying to keep my composure as best I could, I remembered that. And it helped me come back to center and be able to carry on with what I had to do. The power of the American people standing behind us, remembering what the cheer sounded like while I marched in that parade, brought me back to reality, and I had the power of just like you hear all the clapping here, came into my mind and into my soul, and I was able to gain composure and get back to my mission that I had. My first exposure with the military started out very much like this, in an auditorium when I was a young kid in school. Listened to a guy talk about his experience in the military, and then doing some pen pal stuff with some guys in the Gulf War. Events like today are crucial, and they will mean more to people later on in their life than you could ever know. I never would have thought that thinking back on those times and thinking back on a parade that I had to walk in because my command said I had to do it would mean so much to me at a time where I was very vulnerable. We got to remember that Memorial Day is a day to remember those that have sacrificed their lives, and it's also a day that we honor their service, we honor their families' sacrifice, but we also got to remember my story of what happens today is going to bleed over into what happens into the future. This may be a warm moment for somebody that will get you through a specific time that you don't even know about. So keep that in the back of your head. For me, it was always an honor to stand next to the men and women that I served with, and it's something that I will never forget. This year is the first year I'm not going to march in the Westboro Parade. I'm just going to stand in attendance because I want to remember my brothers and sisters the way they were. Again, I thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to speak with you today, and I appreciate everything that you guys do, and it's beautiful music. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. That was great. If Memorial Day is about reflection and remembrance of those who have died in battle, the Battle of Gettysburg during the American Civil War gave President Abraham Lincoln much to think about. Our nation was involved in a bloody civil war between the North and the South over the issue of slavery. This conflict threatened to permanently tear our nation apart. In 1863, there appeared to be no end in sight to the killing and dying. At the Battle of Gettysburg in early July of 1863, a three-day battle occurred in Pennsylvania in which the North barely managed to drive back a huge Southern invasion force. Nobody knew then that this battle would be the turning point of the war, but they did know that over 50,000 men had died during those 3 days of fierce fighting. 6 months later, President Lincoln gave a speech at the opening of a cemetery for all of those on both sides who died fighting for their nation. Hunter Chevalier of the Green Team will now read Lincoln's speech, the Gettysburg Address. Hunter?
Fourscore and 7 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now, we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation, so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. We are met on a great battlefield of that war. We have come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, we cannot hollow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little know, nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here, dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that these honored dead we take increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Abraham Lincoln, November 19, 1863.
Thank you, Renton. The Gibbons Middle School Chorus, under the direction of Mr. Silitano, will now perform Lift Every Voice and Sing. Introducing the song is Abby Chamber and Brooks DeCosta.
Lift Every Voice and Sing was publicly performed first as a poem as part of celebration for Abraham Lincoln's birthday by Johnson's brother John. In 1919, the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People, NAACP, labeled it as the Negro National Anthem for its power in voicing a cry for liberation and affirmation for African American people.
The song is a prayer of thanksgiving for faithfulness and freedom, with imagery evoking the biblical exodus from slavery to the freedom of the Promised Land. It is featured in 39 different Christian hymnals and is sung in churches across North America.
Thank you, Mr. Sultano, and our chorus. Memorial Day is about the remembrance of those soldiers who have made it possible for us to live in freedom. Members of our military have often either died or faced lifetime challenges because of injuries suffered while defending our country. They have sacrificed so much so that our country may remain united and continue to be a place for people who live in freedom. We will now hear from student speakers from every team reciting a poem called The Hill We Climb by Amanda Gorham. This poem was written about the challenges we face as a country amid forces that seek to divide us. It was read by the poet at the inauguration of President Biden in 2021, shortly after the Capitol insurrection on January 6, 2021. Reading the poem will be Himini Negalapundi of the red team, Ellie Spencer of the orange team, Neil Kamadakone of the yellow team, Owen Ellis of the maroon team, Sudevi Ghosh of the purple team, Chloe Finn of the blue team, and Mamatha Bodacheri of the green team.
When day comes, we ask ourselves where we can find light in this never-ending shade. The loss we carry, a sea we must wade. We brave the belly of the beast. We learn that quiet isn't always peace, and the norms and notion of what just isn't always justice. And yet, the dawn is ours before we knew it. Somehow we do it. Somehow we weathered and witnessed a nation that isn't broken, but simply unfinished. Be the successors of a country in a time where a skinny black girl descended from slaves and raised by a single mother can dream of becoming president, only to find herself reciting for one. And yes, we are far from polished, far from pristine, but that doesn't mean we are striving to form a union that is perfect. We are striving to forge our union with purpose, to compose a country committed to all cultures, colors, characters, and condition of men. And so we lift our gaze not to what stands between us, but what stands before us. We close the divide because we know to put our future first, we must first put our future aside.
We lay down our arms so we can reach out our arms to one another. We seek harm to none and harmony for all. Let the globe, if nothing else, say this is true, that even as we grieved, we grew, that even as we hurt, we hoped, that even as we tired, we tried, that we'll forever be tied together, victorious, not because we will never again know defeat, but because we will never again sow division.
Scripture tells us to envision that everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. If we're to live up to our own time, then victory won't lie in the glade, but all in the bridges we've made. That is the promise to Glade. The hill we climb, if only we dare. It's because being American is more than a pride we inherit. It's the paths we step onto and how we repair it. We've seen a force that would shatter our nation rather than share it, would destroy our country if it meant delaying democracy, and this effort very nearly succeeded.
But while democracy can be periodically delayed, it can never be permanently defeated. In this truth, in this faith we trust, for while we have our eyes on the future, history has its eyes on us. This is the era of just redemption. We feared at its inception. We did not feel prepared to be the heirs of such a terrifying hour, but within it we found the power of author to a new chapter, to offer hope and laughter to ourselves. So while once we asked, how could we possibly prevail over catastrophe? Now we assert, how could catastrophe possibly prevail over us?
We will not march back to what was, but move to what shall be. A country that is bruised but whole, benevolent but bold, fierce and free. We will not be turned around or interrupted by intimidation because we know our inaction and inertia will be the inheritance of the next generation. Become the future. Our blunders become their burdens. But one thing is certain. If we merge mercy with might and might with right, then love becomes our legacy and change our children's birthright. So let us leave behind a country better than the one we were left. Every breath from my bronze-hounded chest, we will raise this wounded world into a wondrous one. We will rise from the golden hills of the West. We will rise from the wide-swept Northeast where our forefathers first realized revolution. We will rise from the lake-rimmed cities of the Midwestern states. We will rise from the sun-baked South,
We will rebuild, reconcile, and recover. And every known nook of our nation and every corner called our country, our people, diverse and beautiful, will emerge battered and beautiful. When day comes, we step out of the shade of flame and unafraid. The new dawn balloons as we free it. For there is always light if only we're brave enough to see it. If only we're brave enough to be it.
Thank you. We are nearing the end of our program today, and with it, symbolic playing of taps. Taps is today associated with the burial of those who have sacrificed for our nation. Here to introduce taps is Danica Zong.
Of all the military bugle calls, none is so easily recognized or apt to evoke emotion than taps. The melody is both eloquent and haunting, and the history of its origin is interesting and somewhat clouded in controversy and myth. The use of taps is unique to the United States military, as the call is sounded at funerals, wreath-laying ceremonies, and memorial services. Taps originally began as a signal to extinguish lights. Up until the Civil War, the infantry call for extinguished lights was the one set down for the infantry manuals, which had been borrowed from the French. The music of taps was changed by Major General Daniel Adams Butterfield, 1st Brigade, in July 1862. Butterfield was not pleased with the call for extinguished lights, feeling that it was too formal to signal the day's end. With the help of the brigade bugler, Oliver Wilcox Norton, he created taps to honor his men while in camp at Harrison's Landing, Virginia, following the 7 days battles during the Peninsular Campaign. Butterfield did not compose taps, but actually revised an earlier bugle call. The call we know today as taps existed in an early version of the call tattoo, which had gone out of use by the Civil War. Butterfield knew this early call from his days before the war as a colonel in the 12th New York Militia. As a signal at the end of the day, armies have used tattoo to alert troops to prepare for evening roll call. Butterfield used the last 5.5 measures of the tattoo and revised them into the 24 notes we know today. The new call soon spread around the other units of the Union Army. Today, taps is sounded as a final call every evening on military installations and at military funerals. In 2012, Congress recognized taps as the National Song of Remembrance.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that is our 2023 Memorial Day Assembly. Okay, thank you for coming. Thank you for being a great audience.